Minnesota, Wisconsin. This might just be the most perfectly balanced rivalry in college football. These border neighbors have been going at it since 1890, and the all-time series is literally tied 63 to 63 and 8. The rivalry trophy, Paul Bunyan's axe, tells the story of over a century of battles, with every game score etched into the handle like rings on a tree. Wisconsin dominated for years, winning 14 straight from 2004 to 2017. But Minnesota's been clawing back recently. The 2024 game was classic. Minnesota marched into Madison and took the Axe back 24-7, and you could feel the shift in momentum. What makes this rivalry special isn't just the trophy or the border war aspect, it's that neither team can ever count the other out. When that final whistle blows and one team hoists that massive axe, it's not just about bragging rights for a year, it's about adding another notch to college football's most evenly matched rivalry. Michigan, Ohio State. Some rivalries need fancy names or explanations. This one, it's just called The Game. And that tells you everything. When these two meet in late November, the entire college football world stops. Michigan leads the all-time series 62 to 51-6, but honestly, records don't matter when these teams line up. The 2024 edition was pure Big Ten football. Defense, field position, and late-game nerves. Michigan squeezed out a 13-10 win in Columbus, their fourth straight victory, and you could see the pain on Ohio State faces. That's what makes this rivalry brutal. It's not just about conference titles or playoff spots, though those are usually on the line. It's about a year's worth of bragging rights in a region where this game defines your entire season. The snow, the bands, the traditions, everything builds to this moment. Win, and you're a hero. Lose, and you're counting days until next November. Indiana, Purdue. You want to talk about a trophy with character? The old oaken bucket looks like it came straight from a farm because it basically did. This weathered wooden bucket gets a bronze P or I link added after each game, creating a literal chain of history. Purdue dominates the overall series 77 to 43-6, but that 2024 meeting? Indiana absolutely demolished Purdue 66-0 in Bloomington, and I mean demolished. 6 touchdown passes from Curtis Rourke, and Purdue's own recap called it a frigid finale, which might be the most polite way to describe getting shut out by 66 points. The beauty of this rivalry isn't the blowouts, though. It's the simplicity. Win the game, add your letter to the chain. The bucket keeps score on its own, no marketing department needed. When November rolls around, both fan bases know exactly what's at stake: state pride and another piece of bronze history. Make sure to drop a comment below with your favorite Big Ten rivalry moment and hit that subscribe button for more college football breakdowns. Iowa, Minnesota. This rivalry comes with one of the best backstories in college football. Back in 1935, the governors of Iowa and Minnesota made a bet on the game. The loser would send the winner a prize pig. Iowa won, and Minnesota's governor sent Floyd, a real pig who became the inspiration for the bronze trophy they fight for today. The series has been surprisingly competitive over the years, with Minnesota holding a slight edge historically. Iowa's had some dominant stretches, but Minnesota's recent resurgence under PJ Fleck has made this matchup more interesting. The 2024 game featured typical Big Ten football: ground and pound, field position battles, and defenses that hit hard. What makes Floyd special isn't just the quirky origin story. It's that both fan bases genuinely care about this pig, and the trophy presentation always feels meaningful. When you're hoisting a bronze pig after beating your border rival, you're not just winning a game. You're claiming a piece of Midwest folklore that's been passed down for nearly 90 years. Illinois, Ohio State. This matchup doesn't get the attention of Ohio State's bigger rivalries, but it's delivered some memorable moments over the decades. Ohio State obviously dominates the all-time series, but Illinois has pulled off some stunning upsets that still get talked about in Champaign. Illinois' 2007 victory over top-ranked Ohio State stands as one of the biggest shocks in college football history, derailing the Buckeyes' national title hopes in dramatic fashion. More recently, these games have been about Illinois measuring their progress against Big Ten elite. The 2024 meeting showed the gap that still exists, but Illinois has been building something under Brett Bielema. What's interesting about this rivalry is the recruiting overlap. Ohio State pulls talent from Illinois, while Illinois try to keep home state kids from heading to Columbus. The games might be lopsided on paper, but Illinois always seems to play Ohio State tougher than expected. Sometimes that's enough to create chaos, and chaos is what makes college football beautiful. Michigan State. In-state rivalries hit different, and this one's been hitting hard since 1898. The Paul Bunyan Trophy, a 4-foot lumberjack on a 5-foot base, looks exactly as gloriously overbuilt as a Midwestern rivalry should. Michigan leads 74-38-5, but don't let that fool you into thinking this is one-sided. This rivalry swings in eras and emotions, and when it swings hard. Remember 2021? Kenneth Walker III ran for 5 touchdowns in a stunning upset. Then 2023 happened. Michigan rolled into East Lansing and dropped 49 points in a shutout that felt personal. The 2024 game was tighter at 24-17, but still showed Michigan's current control. What makes this rivalry special is the proximity. These schools share highways, recruiting battles, and family dinner arguments. The football is usually rugged, tight ends, field position, fourth-quarter nerves. Then somebody hoists Paul Bunyan like a state fair prize, and the other side has to watch that axe-wielding lumberjack ride off into enemy territory. Illinois, Northwestern. This is Illinois' backyard dust-up, and it's been brewing since 1892. The series sits at 58-55-5 in favor of Illinois, which tells you everything about how evenly matched these neighbors can be. Since 2009, they've been fighting for the Land of Lincoln Trophy, a bronze stovepipe hat that replaced the old Sweet Sioux tomahawk. Northwestern has had some solid stretches, including a 7-3 run in recent years, but Illinois snapped that momentum with a 38-28 win in 2024. What's fascinating about this rivalry is how it reflects the state itself. You've got Illinois representing the big state school energy, while Northwestern brings that private school precision. The games might not always have national implications, but they anchor the calendar because they're local, loud, and come with hardware. The hat looks great in celebration photos, and it travels, sometimes grudgingly, to whichever team solves November better. It's not just a game, it's the annual check-in on who owns Illinois bragging rights. Iowa, Wisconsin. A century of Midwestern stubbornness distilled into a brass bull. These teams first met in 1894, and the series has stayed tight ever since, which Wisconsin leads 49-47-2. The Heartland Trophy showed up in 2004, and this hefty bronze bull absolutely looks like something you'd guard with a fullback dive. This rivalry feels like position chess with shoulder pads. Wisconsin had their run in the 2000s, but Iowa's tightened their grip lately, winning the last 3, including a 42-10 thumping in 2024. The 2023 game was pure Iowa football, a 15-6 rock fight in Madison where defense and special teams did the loudest talking. Even as the Big Ten reshapes itself, this matchup stayed protected in the new scheduling format, which feels right. 2 border states, 1 bowl, and a brand of football that still celebrates a well-timed punt as art. When the final horn sounds, somebody hoists that bull and somebody else watches it ride off down the tunnel. Simple, brutal, and perfectly Big Ten. Ohio State, Penn State. This rivalry gained serious steam when Penn State joined the Big Ten in 1993, and it's delivered drama ever since. The series is close enough to keep both fan bases on edge, with games that often carry conference title implications. These matchups typically feature elite talent, physical play, and late-season stakes that can make or break championship dreams. The 2024 season saw both programs in the playoff hunt, making their regular meeting even more crucial. What makes this rivalry compelling isn't ancient history. It's the consistent quality of football and the recruiting battles that extend far beyond the field. Both programs recruit nationally, both expect to compete for Big Ten titles, and both fan bases travel incredibly well. When these teams meet, you're usually watching 2 top 25 programs with everything on the line. The games might not have the century-old hatred of some rivalries, but they've got something just as valuable. Consistent stakes and elite competition that makes every meeting feel like a playoff game. Michigan, Minnesota. Here's a rivalry with a trophy that actually got lost and found its way into legend. The Little Brown Jug dates back to 1903 when Michigan brought a water jug to Minneapolis and forgot it after a 6-6 tie. Minnesota kept it, and when Michigan came back the next year asking for their jug, the Gophers said they'd have to win it back. Michigan leads the all-time series significantly, but Minnesota's had their moments, especially during their stronger eras. The 2024 season saw Michigan continue their recent dominance, but the Gophers have shown they can make these games competitive when their program is clicking. What makes the Little Brown Jug special is its simplicity. It's literally just an old water jug that became a trophy by accident. The games themselves often reflect classic Big Ten football, with both teams typically emphasizing strong running games and physical defense. When Minnesota does pull off the upset, it feels seismic because it usually means their program is taking a significant step forward against traditional Big Ten powers. Illinois, Purdue. This rivalry trophy, the Purdue Cannon, literally goes boom, and it's been doing so since 1905 when Purdue students smuggled a small cannon to Champaign expecting to fire it after a victory. Illinois fans found it, swiped it, and the cannon eventually became the official trophy in 1943. In 2024, they hit their 100th meeting, with the 75th for the cannon itself. That chapter delivered pure drama, Illinois winning 50-49 in overtime, in the kind of ending that creates instant rivalry lore. Purdue holds a narrow series lead after Illinois got the win this month, which makes every game feel crucial for both programs' pride. That's exactly what this matchup delivers. Unexpected chaos when you least expect it. The cannon isn't huge, but the emotions are massive. These games often come down to special teams blocks, quarterback protection, and avoiding the one backbreaking mistake. When that final whistle blows, somebody gets to roll the cannon home across state lines, and somebody else has to explain to their fans how they let victory slip away. Simple, salty, and perfectly Big Ten. Minnesota, Nebraska. Although their first meeting was in 1900, Minnesota and Nebraska is a newer rivalry that is becoming more frequent due to realignment. When Nebraska joined the Big Ten in 2011, they needed annual opponents, and Minnesota became one of their regular dance partners. The series is still developing its identity, but these games have delivered more drama than you might expect. Both programs have had their ups and downs in the Big Ten era, which has actually made their meetings more unpredictable. Minnesota has had some strong seasons under PJ Fleck, while Nebraska's been searching for their footing in the conference. The 2024 season saw both teams fighting for bowl eligibility, giving their matchup real stakes. What's interesting about this rivalry is watching it grow in real time. There's no century of bad blood, no ancient trophy, just two programs trying to establish themselves in the Big Ten pecking order. Sometimes the best rivalries aren't born from tradition. They're born from necessity and nurtured by competitive games. This one's still writing its first chapter, but the foundation is solid. Illinois, Iowa. These programs have been meeting regularly since Iowa joined the Big Ten, and the games often carry more weight than the casual fan might realize. Both teams typically play similar styles: strong defense, physical running games, and field position battles that can swing on a single play. The 2024 season saw both programs fighting for bowl eligibility and Big Ten positioning, making their matchup crucial for postseason hopes. Iowa's had the upper hand in recent years, but Illinois has been building something under Brett Bielema that's made these games more competitive. What's interesting about this rivalry is how it reflects the Big Ten identity. Teams that might not have the flashiest offenses, but can grind out wins when it matters. The games are usually decided by execution rather than pure talent, and both coaching staffs know that preparation and game management often matter more than raw ability. When these teams meet, you're watching two programs that understand exactly what kind of football they need to play to get wins in November. Michigan, Northwestern. This matchup has delivered some of the most surprising results in Big Ten history, with Northwestern pulling off upsets that still get talked about decades later. The Wildcats' 1995 Rose Bowl season included a stunning victory over Michigan that announced their arrival as a legitimate Big Ten contender. More recently, Northwestern had some strong seasons under Pat Fitzgerald that made their meetings with Michigan genuinely competitive. The 2024 season saw Michigan continue their recent success, but Northwestern's always dangerous when they're playing with house money. What makes this rivalry interesting is the contrast in programs. Michigan with their massive resources and expectations, Northwestern with their academic focus and underdog mentality. The games often feature Northwestern trying to slow down Michigan's athletes with scheme and preparation, while Michigan looks to impose their will through superior talent. When Northwestern wins, it's usually because they've out-executed and out-prepared a more talented team, which makes those victories feel even sweeter for the Wildcats. The 2025 version coming in November will include a unique venue with the game being played at historic Wrigley Field. Illinois, Indiana. These programs have been meeting regularly for decades, and the games often serve as measuring sticks for where each program stands in the Big Ten hierarchy. Both teams have had their ups and downs, with periods of competitiveness followed by rebuilding years. The 2024 season was particularly interesting, with Indiana having one of their strongest seasons in recent memory, while Illinois has continued building on recent success. But the 2025 game last month was as shocking as they come. Not because Indiana won, but how the game played out. Indiana steamrolled Illinois 63-10 in an early season matchup of two ranked teams. These matchups typically feature teams that are trying to establish themselves as consistent bowl contenders rather than championship contenders. What's compelling about this rivalry is watching two programs that understand their place in the Big Ten pecking order, but refuse to accept mediocrity. The games are usually competitive because both teams know they need every win they can get to reach their postseason goals. When one program starts pulling away from the other, it usually signals a significant shift in trajectory that both fan bases pay attention to throughout the recruiting cycle. Indiana, Michigan State. The Old Brass Spittoon has been awarded to the winner of this matchup since 1950, and it might be the most uniquely named trophy in college football. Michigan State leads the overall series, but Indiana's had their moments, especially during their stronger seasons. The 2024 campaign saw both programs moving in seemingly opposite directions, with Michigan State rebuilding under Jonathan Smith and Indiana looking like a championship contender for much of the season. The 2025 season has seen much of the same. What's interesting about this rivalry is how it typically reflects the middle tier of the Big Ten, programs that can be dangerous when everything clicks but struggle for consistency year to year. The games are usually competitive because both teams know they're fighting for similar goals and recruiting the same level of player. The Old Brass Spittoon might have an unusual name, but it represents something important to both programs. Proof that they can win the games they're supposed to win and occasionally pull off the upset that changes their season trajectory. Iowa, Nebraska. Another realignment special that's actually developed some bite. The Heroes Trophy showed up in 2011 when Nebraska joined the Big Ten, and while the name might sound generic, the games have been anything but. Iowa leads the Big Ten era meetings, but Nebraska dominated the majority of their matchups prior to joining the conference. The 2024 matchup had typical late season implications: bowl eligibility, recruiting momentum, and regional bragging rights. What makes this rivalry work is the geographic logic and similar football philosophies. Both programs emphasize physical play, strong defense, and running the football when it matters. The games usually come down to execution in the fourth quarter, and both fan bases have learned to expect tight finishes. The Heroes Trophy might not have the history of Paul Bunyan's axe, but it represents something fun that you get in the college rivalry games. Penn State, Maryland. Penn State versus Maryland, a newer matchup that's gained importance. When Maryland joined the Big Ten in 2014, they were paired with Penn State as regular opponents, and the games have been more competitive than expected. Maryland had some strong seasons, including that memorable 2019 campaign where they started hot before fading. Penn State usually has more talent, but Maryland's shown they can play spoiler when everything clicks. The 2024 season saw both teams fighting for different goals. Penn State chasing a playoff spot while Maryland battled for bowl eligibility. These games have often featured explosive offenses and questionable defensive play, which makes for entertaining football even if it's not always pretty. What's developing here is a respect-based rivalry. Maryland knows they're usually the underdog, but they've pulled off enough upsets to keep Penn State honest. For Penn State, it's about avoiding the trap game while building momentum for bigger matchups. Not every rivalry needs decades of hatred. Sometimes you just need competitive games and mutual respect. Michigan State, Penn State. Two land-grant universities fighting for a trophy that looks like it was designed by committee. And it basically was. The land-grant trophy showed up in 1993 when Penn State joined the Big Ten, featuring both schools' iconic buildings and mascots in one busy design. Penn State holds the overall edge by one game, which tells you how evenly matched these programs have been. Their last meeting in 2023 was a statement game. Penn State shut out Michigan State 42-0 at Ford Field, sending the land-grant trophy rolling east in emphatic fashion. These games are usually about defense first, with both programs typically featuring strong front sevens and physical play. The rivalry isn't guaranteed every season under the Big Ten's new scheduling format, which actually makes their meetings feel more special. When they do link up, it's usually about late-season stakes and bowl positioning. The land-grant trophy might need its own seat on the bus, but it represents something important. Two proud programs that built their identities on similar foundations, meeting to see who's executing better when November arrives. Minnesota, Penn State. This matchup has gained significance as Minnesota has had some success in recent years. Penn State obviously has more resources and tradition, but Minnesota has shown they can compete when their program is clicking. The games often feature contrasting styles. Penn State with their athletic talent and speed, Minnesota with their physical approach and row-the-boat culture. The 2024 game saw both teams with different expectations, but their meeting still carried weight for bowl positioning and recruiting momentum. Penn State snuck by Minnesota with a close 26-25 win. As the rivalry develops, it will be interesting to see how Minnesota continues to grow as a program, and if they can begin to chip away at Penn State's superiority in the matchup. Penn State, meanwhile, can't afford to overlook the Gophers because Minnesota's proven they can make these games competitive. The lack of ancient history makes this rivalry fresh and current. It's about what's happening now rather than what happened decades ago, which keeps both fan bases focused on the present rather than living in the past. Nebraska, Wisconsin. When Nebraska joined the Big Ten in 2011, Wisconsin became one of their regular opponents, and the games have often carried significant weight in the old divisional setup. Wisconsin dominated the early meetings, but Nebraska's had moments where they've made these games competitive. The 2024 season saw both programs fighting for Big Ten positioning, with Wisconsin trying to extend their 10-game win streak in the series. Nebraska was able to break Wisconsin, and I'm sure their fan base is hoping it is the start to a new streak going the other direction. What makes this matchup interesting is the similar football philosophies historically. Both programs emphasize physical play, strong offensive lines, and controlling the line of scrimmage. The games are usually decided by execution in the trenches rather than scheme, with both teams trying to impose their will through toughness. Their meetings might not have decades of tradition, but they've quickly become important measuring sticks for both programs' Big Ten ambitions. Thanks for watching every traditional Big Ten rivalry breakdown. Drop a comment with which rivalry you think is the most underrated, and make sure to subscribe for more college football deep dives.